opinions expressed in this program are not meant to alarm anyone, but merely start an intelligent discussion about an interesting phenomenon, the possibility that an intelligent life form does exist and is making active contact with the Earth.
Welcome to UFO Update Live. My name is Jerry Black, UFO researcher and investigator. Picture this scene. You're driving down a rural road about an hour before sunset. You see a bright light in the distance which appears to be heading straight for your car. Instantly, you raise your hand to shield your eyes from the blinding light. Your next conscious memory finds you sitting in your car, pulled off the side of the road. It is now pitch black outside and your hands are shaking. Soon you realize that you are only about a mile down the road from the place where you saw the blinding light. As you stare at your watch, you suddenly realize it's taken you 3 hours to travel 1 mile. During the next few weeks, you have reoccurring dreams of small humanoid beings taking you from your car into a large craft. You're placed on a table, given a series of medical tests, then returned to your car. The events I have just described and other similar events have been recorded by hundreds of reliable people in the tri-state area during the past 30 years. Tonight, we will take a serious look at this disturbing mystery of UFO abductions, a real phenomena, as UFO Update Live continues.
To think of the Kentucky case as a case that really puts your brain to work, because this case took over 2 years to investigate. In fact, we're still in touch with the women, as you know, today. And for those people out there who are not aware of the entire story of the Kentucky case, this would be a good time to explain it to them. It involves 3 women in Kentucky, middle-aged women, ages from 35 to 52. They were out one evening celebrating the birthday of one of the 3 ladies. As they left the restaurant, they saw an object in the sky that appeared to be on fire. They at first felt like it was an airplane going to crash. They braced themselves for the possibility of a crash near the vicinity of their moving car. All of a sudden, this object that appeared like it was going to crash stopped like on a dime and was just above the treetops, was metallic, dome-shaped craft, saucer-shaped as it were, revolving around with red, blue, and green lights. They started to panic. One woman actually wanted to get out of the car. Louise lost control of the car to the object. She was the driver. As the car went backwards, she keeps screaming that she has no control of the car. A blue light immediately shone into the back window of the car, and the women felt like they were being saved by a highway patrolman. This was not the case. It was just a blue light coming from the UFO. As the object continued to take control of their car and pull them backwards, they were pulled backwards over what we call a cattle guard, which is a series of pipes in the ground, and they felt those bumps as they went over them. The next thing they knew, they were driving down the highway. Their bodies and their skin was very hot, very dry. They felt almost as if they had suffered some type of sunburn. When they got back to the driver's trailer, they realized they had lost about an hour and 25 minutes worth of time. What would normally have been a trip to take them home about 35 minutes turned out to be an hour and 45 minutes or longer. The women sat down and, on the suggestion of a neighbor, decided to draw what they had seen, the object they had seen. All the drawings later turned out to be very similar. The women noticed that their watches, the second hand on their watches was going around at a very rapid pace. Another woman later in that evening, when she picked up a self-wind clock, the clock stopped. The women decided to retire for the evening. The next morning they reported this to a naval station base in the town. This in turn got reported to the police department, and in turn the newspapers in the local area picked it up. This is how I became involved, because later, as Charles is aware, it was brought to my attention by a worker at my place of employment who has a farm down in that area. And as you know, Charles, we went down right away to investigate the case. We took Peggy with us because the women were very reluctant to have three strange men come down. And we agreed to have Peggy come down with us, and she talked to him on the phone and really set the thing up for us. As it turned out, we were very impressed with her story. However, that was just the beginning. We decided to contact a local psychologist and see if he couldn't help in finding out through hypnosis what may have happened to the lost time the women had, and was there any reason to go into this in depth and spend a lot of time and money. This gentleman went down in March of '76, did a hypnosis session at the home of the mother of one of the women who were in the car. She became quite hysterical as she related just seeing the object and having the car pulled off the road and being under the control of the object. From this, the psychologist determined that it would be satisfactory to go ahead and proceed further with more expense and more time.
You want to see? As you look, can you recognize? You'll be able to keep your eyes open. You'll be able to look and see if you recognize something. You'll be able to look at a sketch, see if you recognize. You'll be able to look. You'll be able to have your eyes open. You'll be able to look. If you recognize something, you can point to it. Something, it's okay. You just keep your body relaxed. If you recognize it, you'll be able to remember it later on.
No. I don't want to see you no more.
You don't want to see anymore, uh-huh.
I don't want to see you no more, please. Let me go home. Please, let me go.
Welcome back to UFO Update Live. Remember, this is your show. We really want to hear from you tonight. If you have any questions concerning the topic tonight, UFO abductions, or any other questions on UFOs, please call us at 651-1221. That's 651-1221. That very disturbing audio tape that you just heard was involved in the Kentucky case in Liberty, Kentucky. For our viewing audience, we thought at this time it would be appropriate to show you exactly what sketch this woman was looking at while she was under hypnosis. As she was under hypnosis, she was viewing the sketches you see on your screen now, and you see an arrow pointing to an alien being. This is the alien being that she pointed to while under hypnosis. Strangely enough, another woman in the car with her at the time, who was also allegedly abducted, also picked out that same alien being. At this time, I'd like to introduce our panel of UFO experts. To my extreme left, we have Brian Thompson. Brian Thompson is a UFO researcher and investigator and has been for many, many years. He has specifically been working on UFO abductions for probably the past 10 years at this particular time. Brian, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, nice.
Terry Endres is also another one of our regular panelists. Terry Endres is a researcher and investigator. Terry is also an amateur astronomer, teacher at CTC, I believe. And welcome to you, Terry, for being here this evening. And of course, Packard is the Assistant State Director for the Mutual UFO Network. He is also just his newfound incorporated group, I believe, ASK, Associated for Scientific Knowledge. He is the president of that organization, and I'm very proud to introduce him also. Thank you for being here. And of course, last but not least, my wife Peggy Black, who's been a researcher and investigator in UFOs for approximately 20 years and is a member of the Center for UFO Studies. We want to answer the question tonight about, you have to bear with me, about UFO abductees and the profile of UFO abductees. For years, scientists have always wondered and debated the issue of whether there was life in outer space. It's been a constant debate. For thousands of people across this country, it is not a constant debate. They believe they've been abducted by alien beings from another planet. Approximately 50,000, and listen to what I'm saying to you, 50,000 to 100,000 people have claimed to have had abduction experiences. And that is eliminating the fantasy-prone people. That's eliminating hoaxes and other probable cause situations. So we have 50,000 to 100,000 good, conscientious people coming forth with claims of abduction. And what we wanted to settle here tonight and make you people realize is that you have, most people out there have a wrong perception as to what that profile of that person is in terms of the abductee. Most people feel abductee is actually a person who's possibly had mental problems in their past history, or possibly a religious fanatic type person. We want to state to you tonight that that is not the case. That is not the norm. In fact, that person who's had the UFO experience, who is afraid to come out of hiding, could be the gentleman right across the street. That gentleman that you trust checking on your house when you're gone on vacation. The gentleman who maybe last summer let you use his lawnmower when yours was broken. Or better yet, maybe it's the lady next door. She's a little bit older than you, but you've known her for 10 years. You've become very close. And as time has gone on, she has related many things to you. But what she hasn't told you is that 25 years ago, she had an experience with a UFO in a forest where she saw a craft and was taken aboard and given extensive examination. She has relived this many, many times to herself over and over for the past 25 years, but she has never yet felt comfortable in coming to you with it. She's babysitted your kids for you. She thinks about that. She's thought about coming to you many times and telling you what she has lived, what she has gone through, what has happened to her. But every time she makes that attempt to come over and talk to you about it, she remembers the children. Would you then let her babysit her kids if she came over and told you she was abducted by alien beings? I doubt it. Would you then be as close with her as you are now? She also doubts that. Consequently, she's kept this secret for years and years. She's watched his constant TV shows and come on, talk shows, talking about UFOs, talking about abductees. And she's seen some of them come on live with their face showing, some of them come on in black. And yet constantly, they've been ridiculed. But tonight there's another show on, she says. There's another show she's going to watch. It's going to be on at 10 o'clock. And she's hopeful that these people will not be ridiculed. It turns out there's two gentlemen on this show and a lady. They have come on there showing their faces to the crowd, showing their faces to the audience. One gentleman is visibly still shook up. As she listens to what these three abductees have to say, she remembers many things that happened to her that are very similar to what she's hearing from these people on the TV. She noticed that the host is taking the show very seriously. Then all of a sudden, there's a question from the audience. That question is, are UFOs real or not real? The person up there says, oh, they definitely are. And then there's laughter from the audience. The host picks up on it. There's more laughter. She sighs and she sits back in her chair and she says, they're not believing them again. I can relate to this. It's really happening. It happened to me. Why don't they believe? So she decides there and then she's never going to ever tell anyone. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a true profile of an abductee. And sitting on this stage tonight, we have one of those 50,000 to 100,000 people right here with us tonight. Thank you for listening to that. Terry, we talk about credible witnesses.
Right.
As many of these people are, if I just explained. You have a case that you've been thoroughly investigating that occurred probably in the first years of abductions.
Right.
Can you give us a little insight as to that case and what it's all about?
Sure. It's commonly called the Hill abduction, and it involved two people, Betty and Barney Hill. When they were riding home from a weekend vacation to the Niagara Falls, somewhere on their ride home, something happened to them. Now, they didn't recall it consciously. They did recall seeing a UFO, but they did not recall any other incident except two series of beeps, strange beeps that seemed to come out of nowhere. 10 days later, the abduction occurred in September 18, 1963. But about 10 days after they got home, Betty started having a series of nightmares, which is not uncommon to abductee victims. And Barney started showing signs of stress-related anxieties. He couldn't pinpoint the cause. Eventually, they sought professional help, and in 1964, they finally went through regression hypnosis therapy. And this is when they found out what actually happened on that ride home. Barney, wishing to avoid traffic and enjoy the ride home, decides they should leave at night. At little after 10, they leave a restaurant near Colebrook, New Hampshire, and take Highway 3 south. As they make their way home, the Hills see what they at first think is an airplane, but soon they realize that the craft appears to be following them. Barney, increasingly anxious, stops the car, gets out, and looks at the object with his binoculars. What he sees terrifies him. Barney, fearing capture, races to the car and speeds away, but the UFO remains close by. About this time, the Hills hear a series of beeps coming from behind. Several miles further down the highway, Barney pulls onto an obscure side road, and the couple encounter an otherworldly roadblock. The UFO has landed, and a crew of aliens have come out to escort the Hills aboard. On board the craft, both are subjected to physical exams. Skin and hair samples, even fingernail clippings, are taken and cataloged. Betty's exam includes what the aliens calls a pregnancy test. For this, a long needle is inserted into her navel. This was unheard of in 1961, but is a common practice today. Finished with Betty, the leader takes her on a tour of the ship and shows her a star chart. Betty wants to know where his star is, but can't locate the Earth on the chart when asked. The leader tells her it would make no sense if he showed her his home star. Betty asks if she can have something to prove this all happened. The leader offers her a book, but has to withdraw the gift when several of his colleagues object. Told they will forget the experience, the couple is returned to their car and the UFO flies off into the night. Soon after, the Hills hear a second series of beeps. The Hills' next clear memory is seeing a road sign that reads, Concord, 17 miles. They arrive home 2 hours later than planned, with no conscious recall of the abduction. This is still an important case and a very credible one. Betty Hill was a social worker, had quite an extensive practice, and Barney was involved heavily with the NAACP in his area. Both witnesses had had a lot of reasons not to come forward, so it really took a lot of courage on their part to do so. Betty Hill is still living, and she has never yet reneged on her testimony. And Barney died in 1969 as a result of a stroke, which may have been predicated by the amount of stress that he felt from being an abductee.
I see. I understand we have a phone call now, panel. Joshua, you're on with UFO Update.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, you're on. Go ahead, Joshua.
Hello, Josiah.
Okay. Josiah, I'm very sorry. My fault. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I have a question that is perhaps a little more general than the specific issues you've been discussing so far. I'd like to know that if UFOs do travel to the Earth, then how do they get over the fact that they travel from light years away? How can they break the speed of light?
Well, I'll take that. We don't know that they do. There are a lot of things that have to be considered. We're talking about an alien life form. We're not talking about a human life form. And the limitations on the human travel in space has something to do with lifespan. Now, if we have an alien life form that has an extended lifespan, they don't really need to get to light speed necessarily. A percentage of it would be almost necessary, but not necessarily light speed. What we need also to remember is that their objectives, their mission objectives, would be different too, because they're coming from a completely different culture with a completely different psychology, if you will. So the whole impact of star travel for them would be totally something we couldn't quite understand. So any limitations that we project onto an alien life form just don't make sense. They make sense for us, but not for an alien life form.
If I could add also, you're assuming that already we know all there is to know about physics, and that we can't achieve light travel or some other type of travel that may exceed light, traveling at the speed of light. And we really don't know that much. We're really not very far into a scientific type of a society. It's not that old for us to assume we know everything, so we've got a long way to go.
Plus, you have to also remember, too, that we can dig out papers back from 100 years ago which report that when we always reach one plateau, all the scientists always told us we would never reach the next one. Such as when we had the airplane, they said we'd never have a craft that would go the speed of sound. So you can see that every time we've come a little step farther in terms of our knowledge or in terms of our advancement, there's always scientists as a whole that are saying we can't go any farther. So to obtain the speed of light, while it may seem ridiculous to us, I think certainly that would be something we probably could achieve and will achieve in the next 2,000 years if we're around here that long.
Scientists also said we couldn't fly. It would be an impossibility, and I can't remember exactly what their reasoning was.
If man would fly, God would have given him wings.
Yeah, well, probably so, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I stated to you earlier about abductees not wanting to come forward because of the fact of the constant ridicule. And by the way, I think we have to give our news media credit for this. A lot of times we do shows, and when they come back to the announcers, and so the laughter begins to start, which totally upsets me. I think there should be a more openness to the subject. Certainly they have a right to their opinion, but this is the reason we can't bring forth people on this stage showing you their face that are willing to talk about their experience because of the ridicule involved. Peggy, however, has interviewed during this past week a young couple that have allowed us to hear their voice being altered, of course, and their faces blacked out, but they have some very interesting experiences to relate concerning UFOs. And Peggy, you want to set us up for that?
The clip we're about to see involves a local couple that I interviewed this past week about their UFO-related experiences. In my opinion, both of the people were very sincere, and I felt like they were both above average in intelligence.
Can we roll that tape now, please?
Yes, I had a very disturbing dream in December of '87, which I believe may have been memories of an actual event. I was in a motel room with my oldest son, who was about 5. A small UFO landed in the parking lot, and I saw a number of children being taken into the UFO. A short, dark-complected woman came to my room and asked to take my son. I told her yes, she could, if she promised to bring him back. Then she grabbed my forearms, and a current went through my body in bright light, and I was paralyzed. I couldn't move and began floating above the ground toward the object. There were also 6 to 8 beings on either side of the walkway who looked like androids, and they were all dressed alike in blue uniforms. I was really frightened, and I tried to stay calm so that I could remember what was going to happen next. I can't remember anything else, and I woke up terrified. My forearms were burning and tingling where she had grabbed me, but I couldn't see any marks. Shortly after this, my husband began having strange experiences and dreams also.
I understand that you've also had some UFO experiences besides the ones that your wife has described. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
I've also seen several UFOs, some of them in broad daylight. Starting in about 1968 or so, was near Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. They were definitely not any type of conventional aircraft.
Do you feel that you were also abducted, or?
I'm not certain that I have. My wife had been having some strange experiences and dreams over the years that she would tell me about, and it wasn't that I didn't disbelieve her, but I tried to keep an open mind. I didn't know what it was or what it might be, but my viewpoint on this changed somewhat. It was in December of 1988 that something pretty strange happened to me, We'd gone to bed as usual. We lived in a ranch house in the suburbs, and about 5 o'clock in the morning I woke up and the back of my leg was burning. I got up to see what it was and turned the lights on in the bathroom and saw that I had a burn on the back of my leg that wasn't there when I'd gone to bed. We didn't have any type of radiators or anything like that in the house that I could have gotten burned on. I don't know what it was, how that could have been. I just don't know.
I saw a picture of your burn. Did you go to the doctor the next day or anything? Or?
No, I didn't. After everything that had been going on, there were a whole lot of really strange experiences. I was pretty sure, as at least, maybe not exactly how it happened, but what it was connected with anyway. And besides, I didn't know what I would tell a doctor if he asked me how I burned my leg.
Have you ever had any other experiences? Or?
Quite a few. It was in October of '89. These are just a couple of things that kind of come to mind. I woke up one night it felt like someone was pressing on my chest. This was in a state that I wouldn't say that I was wide awake, and I don't think that I was asleep and dreaming it either. It was something kind of in between, and it looked like my wife was being led out of the bedroom by what looked like a bunch of little kids. And I tried to get up and see what was going on, and the words kind of came into my head that you can't go yet. And it was a couple of days later that I found that I had a burn on my chest then. About April of '89, I saw another UFO during the day. I pulled into a parking lot, and I was looking at this with several other people that had seen it and pulled over as well. I went back home and to call my wife and tell her about it, and just as I was telling her about it, the phone started making this really loud buzzing sound, and we were disconnected. The phone was then dead. I couldn't dial out, and she told me that she couldn't call back either. It was just nothing when she tried to dial the number. So I tried to call local newscaster that I knew in passing to tell him what had happened when the phone started working again. Went through the switchboard and all that, and as soon as he picked up the phone and I started to tell him about what I'd seen, the phone did exactly the same thing again. Loud buzzing sound and went dead. And immediately after that, the house began to shake violently, as if there was some kind of giant just shaking a dollhouse. Needless to say, it scared me pretty badly.
Peggy, that was a fantastic interview. Can you give us a little insight as to what your opinion was as you met these people and went over their experience with them?
Before the interview, the lady was kind enough to take me into her dining room and share with me some of her notes. She had 20 pages of notes that she had written on the experiences throughout her life. And it was a very chilling experience. As I sat at her dining room table, on the very first page when I looked down and saw about the feeling of being watched or seeing someone with large eyes watching through a second floor bedroom, over the years I've related to a few people the feeling as a girl of the same age as she had been, being watched by beings, and it was just a real bone-chilling feeling to see somebody else had the same feeling. And then again when I looked down and I saw about her dream, and I had similar dreams.
I might add, these people are very credible people. They work in the public eye, and consequently that's the reason that we could not show their faces or had to disguise their voice. At this particular time, I want to welcome a guest to our panel this evening, and Mr. Bob Contadino. And Bob, you are a mental health counselor?
Yes, that's correct.
I appreciate you being here with us this evening. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, because your input is going to be most valuable, I assure you. Pat, we saw the intruders about a year and a half, maybe a year and 3 months ago. They gave a lot of statistics and figures there. 5 million people have been abducted, et cetera, and all kind of figures were blurted out. Can you give us some better and some more realistic figures on this abduction phenomenon, where we stand?
Well, basically, what the figures that are often overlooked. Today, you'll hear a lot of criticism about hypnosis, and that people are recalling these. In fact, that's why Bob was kind enough to come on to tell us about false memory syndrome. But in point of fact, 40% of these people do not recall. They don't need the aid of hypnosis to recall. And the remaining 60% of the people usually remember, like Barney and Benny Hill did, a light in the sky or an encounter of some type. And this is overlooked completely by the critics. Not only is that overlooked, but the multiple abductions where 2 or more people are taken, something like 27% of abductions involve 2 or more people. Oftentimes they haven't seen each other for years and years. And we have many cases, I don't want to go into the details, it'll take too long, where they've been separated, interviewed by separate mental health professionals, and tell the same story. Now, it's very curious. I don't think they could all be lying. Not only that, we have missing time experiences. Not only do they miss time, but people miss them. They're not around anywhere. No one can find them. They're reported missing. They come back with, like we saw on the other tape, they've got burns, they've got scoop marks, they've got strange rashes and other things that seem to go along with this. And for instance, an article appeared in Psychology Today. John Mack at Harvard has come down on the side of abduction being a real event. And curiously, they leave all these facts out. And I don't see that as being a very scientific attitude. I mean, if it was a 3 or 4% sampling that said these things, it would be statistically significant. 40% without the aid of hypnosis recalling abduction, beings, etc., is incredible. And it's just amazing to me that we don't have better science, better studies, but the primary reason we don't is the government won't fund it, and we can't afford to because the people are all over the country. The expense of hiring people that, like a John Mack or someone with those kind of credentials to lead a study like that is outside of our means in the UFO community. So.
Isn't it interesting, though, Pat, that 90 to 95% of these cases that come forth are very similar in terms of description of the beings themselves? And
you could make a case, I'm sure Bob can make a case, that there could be some leading or confabulation on these people, but yes, around the world, and evidently without any prompting, these people come forward with these same details. Now, an interesting part of the Benny and Barney Hill story was Dr. Simon, who interviewed them separately. He gave them suggestions so they wouldn't remember the other's interview, and he did not believe in UFOs. In fact, the opposite is true. He tried to dissuade them over and over again that what they were having was a fantasy, yet they stuck to their story. And that's very common, too. So while I'm sure we have cases of false memory and what they call Munchausen's, people just like to tell big stories or whatever, we have a very significant number of people that are not what they call fantasy prone. They don't have temporal lobe epilepsy. There's no real explanation for this. And then there's all the surrounding factors, the missing time, the scars, the marks, people looking for them, the same stories being told from different perspectives, much like in the Casey County case we had on the very top of the show. So,
I understand we have a call, panel. Dennis, you're on UFO Update.
I have a question. Deals with the Roswell crash of 1963. And I was wondering, well, when Majestic 12 was formed from that, did the NSC Council come from that also? And materials found from the site, is there any connection or anything to do with the new stealth technology we have today?
I didn't hear the...
He said Roswell crash of 63, ahead, but I think... Yeah. Dennis, did you mean the Roswell crash of 47?
Well, yes, that's correct.
Go ahead, Pat.
Right.
Well, Pat's got a surprise for us next weekend. Maybe you can use this as a...
Well, okay, just let me say this. Next weekend, we're going to have a new books out called The Truth About the UFO Crash at Roswell. We're going to have the authors at Zimmer Auditorium next weekend. So they'll be there. They've uncovered a tremendous amount of facts. They've got 6 generals that are now have testified about the reality of this, World War II aces, the list, college professors, you name it. They've got these people. They've actually found the crash site, the people that cleaned it up, and the bodies, and they'll be here next week to talk to us about it.
Dennis, you're asking about Majestic 12? Is
Uh-huh.
it?
Go ahead, Brian, I'm sorry.
Well, and the other group also, or did you? Dennis,
NSC, I think you said.
Right, the National Security Council. I believe the National Security Council came about the same time, or about the time of the crash.
Well, in fact, so did the CIA. A lot of the intelligence collecting agencies developed not long after World War II, and for some practical reasons, of course, with the Soviet Union. But it is an interesting coincidence that those agencies should pop up in that same time frame. As far as Majestic 12 is concerned, there may in fact be an organization within the government that specializes in UFO cases. But recently a document that was released that was supposed to prove the existence of this committee has pretty much been discounted as a forgery. That does not mean that there aren't organizations involved with collecting crashed UFOs and sending them off to be analyzed.
Let me just add that General Exxon says there is such a committee. It's not called Majestic 12, but the date on the particular documents that are Majestic 12, those type of documents are numbered. And the number that's on the Majestic 12 documents that were given to the UFO community is a bogus number. So that in itself discredits the Majestic 12 documentation.
Dennis, I want to thank you for your call. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Remember now, you can call us at 651-1221 if you have any questions on UFOs. Bob, you're a mental health counselor. You've been working on the false memory syndrome situation. In fact, there's an organization that you belong to. Can you give us some idea of what false memory syndrome really is all about?
Yes, false memory syndrome refers to a phenomenon of what individuals think is a memory, but in fact is not a memory. They are individuals who typically go into therapy for a variety of reasons, fairly common reasons, depression, anxiety, marital problems, and things of this sort. And then during the course of the therapy, they start having what they think are memories, usually memories of abuse, sex abuse, when they were younger. And then they say that the memory or the events had been repressed or forgotten for a period of years, sometimes decades, and then the memories come back up again during the therapy. Under these particular circumstances, we're inclined to believe that these are not true memories. They're not historically accurate, and this is what's referred to as the false memory syndrome.
Do you think there's any relationship between that and UFOs? Again, I'm asking you a question which I know you're not really familiar with. It's kind of just an opinion I'm trying to get from you. From what you've heard tonight, and you saw the tapes there, is there any way we can categorically say that any percentage of people at all are suffering from that type of situation who have seen UFOs or claim to have seen UFOs?
Again, I'm not an expert in UFOs, but I can make some comparisons for you, and that is that we see in the people with the false memory a greater tendency to want to tell their story. They go public, in other words. People who have really been abused tend to not want to. The reluctance tends to be there. Also, some of the other elements of the imagery and the hypnosis and so forth, you're talking about physical evidence that was present in the way of injury, burn, and so forth. Usually with the false memory, we are not able to find corroborating evidence from the past. So that might be yet another difference.
So there's no physical evidence usually involved with the false memory syndrome?
Right. I mean, it is true that there's no way to say with absolute certainty what did or did not happen years ago, but we can talk about what is most likely based on what we know about memory and hypnosis and a variety of related things. Memory is not like a videotape.
Bob, let me ask you this. Basically, one of the key differences between abduction and false memory is the fact that the people, when they come to us, they remember, like I said, 40% remember without the aid of hypnosis, but they do remember generally, the vast majority, 90% probably, without the aid of hypnosis, an event that's happened, and that's in fact not what happens in false memory.
Well,
as you know it, anyways, we know it now. I know it's not a lot of studies having been done yet.
And this is still fairly new.
Fairly new stuff.
Most of the people who have the false memory and make accusations based on the false memory typically get the memory through therapy and things that happen in the therapy. There are some, though, that happen after being exposed to, say, someone else's story,
Right.
or if they're in a group with others who are having the false memory, they'll begin to identify with it, and then they start having their own. For example, it's quite possible with the UFO situation that someone may have read about it, talked with other
Right.
people, and so forth, so there may well have been an element of suggestion already there prior to coming to your attention.
Right.
Brian, you've worked with many people on the abduction. What is your opinion in terms of this, any relationship at all to this phenomenon?
The memory process is elusive and not well understood. And I think Bob's point is that you can mold a person's memory to the point where they're convinced it's a real thing for them, and hypnotists can certainly do that. At the same time, I'm convinced that somebody could have a memory from years ago, prior to age 5, and maybe have dissociated themselves from that experience, and 20, 25 years, 50 years later have that come to mind. And it would be a valid experience from the past and would have affected their life in the meantime.
You told the opposite viewpoint, though, right, Bob? That the false memory, basically, we don't have any examples of a repressed.
Well, I'm agreeing with Bob in the sense that a person's mind and their memory system is easily influenced by another person. So
That has been documented both in the laboratory and in field test.
Gentlemen, we have another caller. Janet, you're on UFO Update.
Hi. I would like to ask all of you, excluding what we would maybe call scientific curiosity from aliens, have any of you, or have you spoken to anyone that may feel what their purpose is?
You want to handle that, Brian?
It's kind of a scary question, but...
there's two different camps here. There's I noticed in looking at John Mack's book just a little bit recently, it's just released and it's titled Abduction. He's taking the stand that the aliens are here to save us from ourselves, in a sense. There's a lot of messages pertaining to save the environment and be more careful that way. But Hopkins, the man who introduced John Mack to the alien abduction phenomenon, is actually preaching that this is a genetic manipulation thing, and it's not to our benefit at all. So it's easy to find people thinking just about any angle that you want. Some people preach a spiritual undertone to the whole thing, and enlightenment is ensuing, and other people say that we're just being abused and there's nothing in it for us. So, have you had this experience, Janet, or do you have some thoughts here?
No, I have not. My son swears that he saw, when he's 25 now, he claimed it happened to him when he was 13. He went and got every kind of aircraft manual book he could find, trying to identify the object he saw to see. The older the got, he insists. But I have read on this for years, which, I could ask one more question, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Do you remember when the books came out that Ezekiel's vision in the Bible may have been an alien craft? Is anybody familiar with that?
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is, do you feel this has been going on for a much longer period than the public is really being made aware of? Because over the years I've read so many books, and I don't know, how much truth you can put in them, that they feel this has been going on for a very, very long time.
Terry's itching to speak up.
I saw his smile.
The only problem with that, when we start getting back into ancient history, we don't have anybody actually left to interview, to sort of substantiate any kind of claim made by scholars today. That's really the only problem. It's not impossible that this has been going on for that long a period of time, but there's just really no way to get some hardcore substantiation. Joseph Blumrich was the fellow who wrote the spaceships of Ezekiel, and he was a NASA engineer. So, speaking from the voice of authority, this is how he built up the case for the spaceships coming and appearing to Ezekiel. Unfortunately, again, though, this is, hindsight is 20/20, and you can basically put together a model for a UFO out of any number of references made by any ancient culture. So
I guess most people would agree, though, that the frequency of sightings and events has stepped up as of the mid-40s, when nuclear power came on the scene, and I think that's of interest. And there's a high frequency of sightings around nuclear power plants and nuclear ammunition sites. So,
if you would want my feelings on it, I think it frightens me simply because of being human.
Sure.
I know on our planet it's always who's going to dominate, or we instinctively fear the unknown, and we can only hope they're not like us, because if they are, then it's pure trouble.
Yeah.
That's my feeling, and thank you very much for talking to me.
Keep track of your son there, Janet.
I think we ought to note here one thing. John Mack does have a spiritual connotation to his work, but he in fact finds the same physical examinations and the same events happening to these people. He just seems the results, the conclusions he draws are a little different. You know, in his book, he does make mention of people having medical examinations, and the same things are happening to them. So,
once in a while, he also qualifies some of these cases by admitting that whatever kinds of messages that the abductees have may, in fact, be their way of dealing with the trauma, and not necessarily a literal documentation of their testimony. So he does, while he does kind of lean toward the spiritual side of these events, he does not necessarily condone that as the answer.
but he says they're real. Let's not let people know it's just a spiritual, it's a physical thing that he concurs with the other researchers that it is a physical thing that's happening to them. So,
one thing is certainly fair to say, and that is that panelists, is that there's a lot of people in stress out there certainly believing they've had these experiences. And we're talking thousands and thousands of people who honestly, sincerely believe that the experiences they're relating are true, and they've suffered the trauma that goes with them. And with that in mind, Peggy has started, in fact we've had about 4 meetings I think so far, has started a UFO support group, to which I alluded earlier about the woman living next door and not having any place to go. Peggy's thought about that a long time and finally decided she wanted to try to help these people. So she started a support group some months back. We meet every other month. And Peggy, I want to have you try and tell the audience for us a little bit about the support group, how many people have been coming, and give us a particular case of some of the things that you're hearing at the support group from people.
We've averaged about 25 to 40 people. We've had, so far, I believe it's been about 3 meetings. And most of the people have said that this is an experience that has changed their life forever. They all agree on that it's something that they can't forget. Most of them either think about it daily or almost on a daily basis. Many of them have claimed that their psychic ability, they've either developed it, or if they've previously had a psychic ability, that it's very much increased. We have people there of all ages. We have an older lady that's come to us from Indonesia who started having her sightings as a young girl. It was a small thing about the size of a top. When she lived in Indonesia, she's had large UFO sightings since she's come to America. Had a lady from Russia that's had an experience, an older lady. We have middle-aged people, young people. It's a variety of people, but they all agree that whatever happened, that it's changed their life forever. Many of them said that they didn't want this experience to happen to them. It wasn't something they were looking for. A lot of them tell me that they've had a full life. They don't need the excitement or to be able to talk about having had an experience. That the one thing they don't like is the feeling of no control. They don't like the idea that they're taken against their will.
Thank you very much for that. I understand we have another caller. Jamie, you're on UFO Update.
Yeah, hello. This is a very interesting topic here. I talked to you about 10 minutes ago. I have a number of questions that I'd like to ask, and perhaps you could answer them after I hang up. Why are these creatures hurting people? When they make their appearances in that, why are they hurting people like that?
Well, first of all, quickly I want to say it depends on how you perceive the word hurting. I'm not saying that people haven't been terrified. I'm not even saying that they haven't had some pain inflicted upon their body. But in most of the cases that have come to us or that we've heard about, I don't think there's any more pain inflicted upon their body. I'm not talking about the emotional pain. I'm talking about the physical pain on their body than you would if you went to get an examination from a doctor.
Well, I mean, weren't there cases where these ladies developed cancer in that?
Please?
They develop cancer?
Yes, there are some cases there. Betty Cash is one.
Cash Landrum case.
Yeah.
Who developed cancer from seeing an object in the sky. And I don't think that was necessarily a hostile act. I think this was an occurrence that happened. She was possibly in the wrong place at the wrong time. She did have radiation burns. She attempted to sue the government, claiming that there were helicopters in the area, numerous helicopters, in fact. She did lose her lawsuit, obviously. So consequently, you know, the government has not acknowledged the fact that they were even there, even though all these helicopters were seen. So, but getting back to your original question, I don't think there's been really intentional harm inflicted upon anyone that I'm aware of. There has been a disappearance of a few people who have never returned, if they indeed were taken by UFOs. But as far as any physical pain over and above anything other than a doctor's type of analysis and medical examinations, I don't think that's really happened. Okay. I want to thank you for your call very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Appreciate it. At this time, Pat, I'd like you to give us some insight about this gentleman you've got coming into town. I understand you're going to be having the gentleman who wrote the book, The Truth About the Crash at Roswell. Give us a little background on that for the people who will be interested in maybe going to that lecture.
Well, first of all, these fellows are probably the best investigators, or among the best I've ever encountered in any field. They spent the last 5 years in Roswell tracking down witnesses of various types. I mentioned that they found a team of archaeologists. They found several generals. In fact, one of the generals is going to be on, I think it's 48 Hours with Dan Rather. And he's not going to, they're not going to show his face, but the length and breadth of the work they've done is incredible. And anyone that has an interest should come and see this lecture. I think you're going to give the date and time of it, but it's you just would have to hear it to believe it, I guess. All the witnesses we have and the credibility of the witnesses, they're far and above average. We know there's not an average witness in the group because most of the witnesses came from the 509th Atomic Bomb Group. That was the creme de la creme of the military in 1947, and they were World War II aces, I mentioned earlier. They were captains, colonels, generals, and we've got a complete timeline. We can trace the wreckage, we can trace the bodies. They found people that did autopsies. It's really an incredible case. The General Accounting Office is looking into it. A recent development is that the Pentagon had denied the existence of the Roswell case. Now they have said, told the General Accounting Office to get their nose out of it. So that's a left-handed admission that it exists, and certainly they've drawn a line in the sand, and I think we're probably in for some good things as a result of that.
Is it fairly safe to say that the government seems to be stonewalling this investigation?
Well, they've stonewalled. Representative Schiff from Mexico started this quite some time ago because people's lives were threatened and are continued to be threatened. So the bottom line is he was stonewalled, and the General Accounting Office has been stonewalled for several months. And this latest statement, which happened, I think, March 3rd, is the first real breakthrough in terms of them admitting that there was anything that happened at Roswell. And if the new book that's out is, I don't think anyone can dispute 60 first-hand witnesses and 550, or almost 600 total witnesses now, first, second, and third hand. So,
I see. I want to thank you for that information. Let me give the audience some general information on some of the things that are coming up here. As Pat mentioned, this lecture is going to be taking place at the Zimmer Auditorium. It's going to be on April the 9th at 7:30 in the evening. For any more information about it, you can contact Pat at 860-4250. And Pat will be happy to give you more information about that. For you people out there who've had UFO experiences and want to relate those experiences to a group who's interested in hearing what you have to say and where you won't be ridiculed, I invite you to come to Peggy's group, which will be on April the 12th at the Milford Library in Milford, Ohio. That meeting will be at 6:30 to 8:45 in the evening. So we certainly invite you to attend. If you have any questions on anything you've seen tonight, I've given you Pat's number. Peggy's and our number is 625-2613. The Zimmerman Auditorium, of course, is on the University of Cincinnati campus.
It's Zimmer. I told you Zimmerman. That was my mistake.
My apologies. It's the Zimmer Auditorium on the University of Cincinnati campus. And also, I want to be sure and get this in. Terry Endres, one of our panel here, has done such a marvelous job on this UFO update newsletter. This is the 3rd edition, he's still offering this for just a self-addressed stamped envelope. So you can't beat this, because this type of a newsletter is not only just so full of information. If you would try to get this type of newsletter from an organization, it would cost you $15 to $20 a year to get a monthly bulletin like this. So please take advantage of this situation and give Terry a self-addressed stamped envelope for Volume 3. And you can do that. You can do that by writing to Terry at UFO Newsletter, 239 Old State Road, Cleves, Ohio 45002. Panel, what's the conclusion here? Let's start with Brian. Brian, abductions, where's it going to go? We come to the end of as far as we can go without some breakthrough in an individual abduction?
I don't think we can reach a conclusion now, Jerry. You know that
as well as what I'm saying, though, is...
And there are a lot of things developing. We have people recounting experiences under hypnosis. There are a lot of similarities. There's a lot of dissimilarities. There's car engines that shut off, and a lot of electromagnetic effects are of interest, and we didn't really touch upon that tonight. And, of course, there's government stories turning up now. Len Stringfield's latest publication mentions all kinds of government escapades or dealings with the government that might be linked in this Hall of Mirrors studies, and so the hard evidence might be in that realm, but the abduction experience with its psychological problems and the people being directly involved is going to get more attention, I'm sure.
So you don't think we're going to have a conclusion in our lifetime? Is that
My
a fair
conclusion
statement
is it's worthwhile paying attention to.
Right. I certainly agree with that. Bob, do you have any comments you'd like to make on this subject? I know you're new at it, but
Yes,
we certainly be interested in your comments.
A similarity that exists with the false memory syndrome and with the abduction is that people with the false memory also react to it as if it were a real event, so they are suffering from the experience. Sigmund Freud some time ago said, to the human psyche, belief and reality are the same thing. So it would seem to me that another similarity is that there is a traumatic-like response to the memory, whether it was historically accurate.
You think it's worth a continuing
Certainly,
investigation?
we have to keep our minds open.
I appreciate those comments. Terry, what do you think?
Well,
are we going to ever find out what's going on here, seriously? I mean, this is a serious situation. I hope people understand this.
Sure.
There are a lot of people out there suffering, no help available, basically.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that any kind of answer is going to be gotten simply through cooperation with whoever is conducting these abductions. Obviously, the technology is such that we can't catch up with them.
Okay.
So, in effect, I guess we're sort of in the same situation as just getting reports of sightings. We're just collecting reports of abductions.
Pat, your quick comments.
Well, quickly, we just don't have enough good data about the abductees. We don't have enough good investigation about the things that are happening to them. Somehow we need to get funding. The government won't do it. In order to really make any progress, it's like anything. Without good studies, without good people doing them, we're never going to get any further, I don't think.
Peggy, what's your comment?
Well, just recently I've been asked, do I think there's any connection between what's going on? There's a lot of UFO activity in the Falmouth, Pendleton County area, and there's also the visions of the Blessed Mother over in Falmouth, Kentucky, and I've had different people asking me, do I think that there's any connection between the two? And I think it's very interesting. I think it's something we should look into.
So any answer right now is acceptable. Everything on the table has a possibility until we come up with a proven answer panel. Bob, I want to thank you very kindly for being here with us this evening. Thank you for taking time out in your busy schedule to be here with us. Panel, I want to thank all of you guys and ladies for being here with us this evening. It's been an interesting show. We're going to do more and more of this abduction thing. It's going to coming down the road.
Bob, I'm sure if people have trouble with false memory syndrome, you're in the phone book. Did you want to give a number or anything?
Yes, I can be reached at 541-5272.
Okay, thank you very much. Listen out there. I hope all your experiences out there are pleasant ones. Take it easy and good night.